arms towards the sun, you feel the warmth of the rays, and then you know you're alive and you don't have to be afraid of anything, cause you know the truth, and the truth is love, yes it is. Wasn't what they said to you or anything that you learn from a book or from the news. It's not like that, cause it's a thing. It is something that you do. Doop doo doop doo. Doop doo doop doo. Doop doo doop doo. Dib on baby did long. Doop doo doop doo. Doop doo doop doo. Doop doo doop doo. Dib on baby did love's the highest truth. Nothing could be higher than love, my friend.
Welcome to the Bassline, everyone. Dr. Alim Muhammad is a doctor of medicine who specializes in nutrition and preventative care. In the early days of COVID and the emergence of the biosecurity state, he was way ahead of the curve. With insight into gain of function, mRNA, and the cytotoxic spike protein, he was among the very first to refer to the spike protein as a bioweapon. It is my distinguished honor to introduce to the Bassline the profound Dr. Alim Muhammad. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Muhammad. How are you this afternoon?
I'm fine. Thank you so much. I'm honored to be invited to be with your family.
Thank you. Well, first of all, before we get into our outstanding conversation, I do have an important announcement to make. This Sunday, that's this Sunday, September 29th at 1:30 p.m., I'm going to be giving a public speech. And the address for this event is 122 East 83rd Street. That's 122 East 83rd Street this Sunday at 1:30 p.m., and there's no cost for this event. This is about public health. This is about invigorating the medical freedom movement here in New York City. So please join me if you can. If you're not in the New York City area, please make it a point to reach out to people in the New York City area and direct them my way. That's this Sunday, 1:30 p.m., and it is located at 122 East 83rd Street, and it's going to be a memorable event, I promise. Also, please check out my Substack. The best way to support this program is, of course, through supporting my Substack. Just look up Jeremiah Hosea, Hosea. And I just finished an article just a couple weeks ago called The Final Countdown. So please check out that article. It's another good one. The feedback has been great. The comments below the article are worth the price of admission. But all that being said, let's get into today's phenomenal discussion, because we have an incredible guest for the occasion. Dr. Alim Muhammad is someone I met at the Medical Freedom event in Harlem, which is the neighborhood where I reside, and it was such an incredible thing to see him speak. He was profound, he was poised, and it was amazing because seeing his video early on, I don't remember what month we were in, but I'm pretty sure it was before the rollout of the killer vaccines. Dr. Muhammad had a video that was going viral, and it seemed like it was filmed in a cafe in Brooklyn, was the impression I got. That's my memory of it. But he went over a range of topics that were way ahead of the curve in terms of the discussion happening at that time. So I'm so curious to hear his perspective as of now, since so many things have transpired over the past couple of years, going on to 5 years almost of biosecurity madness. But let's start out, Dr. Muhammad, with a huge question. I apologize for a question that's so broad in scope, but we witnessed this global campaign to inoculate the global public with mRNA injections. I mean, I don't even want to get started on the insanity of all of that and my feelings about that. Wrote several articles about this subject and the insanity of it all. I wrote an article called 1,000 Red Flags, and you didn't see one of them? And then I wrote a follow-up article, 1,000 red flags, and you didn't see one of them, volume 2. And it can be an ongoing series because there were so many red flags. But here we are, so many people, whether they succumbed to the coercion or they thought it was the right thing or whatever the case may be, we are talking about billions of people now globally who have received mRNA injections. What do you view as the fallout of this event, Dr. Muhammad? We're seeing sudden deaths. We're seeing a new range of health problems. But what has the human race done to itself effectively?
Well, thank you for that very broad and general question. And once again, I'm highly honored to be a part of your audience and family. And for people who want to follow me, I'm on Telegram, Dr. Alim on Telegram, and I can give more in-depth information than I'm able to give in this interview.
Right.
But I think the major point that has to be emphasized, and it's the point that most people shy away from, is to confront the presence of evil in our world. The 10,000 red flags or a million red flags are not enough to dissuade evil from doing evil. Now, if we are of the mistaken opinion that the world leaders, especially in areas of public health, have good intentions in mind, well, then we are sadly mistaken. And that's why we are often caught off guard and victimized, because we assume that the people who are before us dressed up in the starch white coats, the experts on television from the government agencies, we assume that they're on our side, when in fact the facts show otherwise. That the reality of it is there is a global depopulation agenda. And the vaccine campaign related to COVID-19 is a part of a general depopulation agenda. So now, when's the last time you heard anybody use that term, depopulation? Even though in the public record, it goes back for decades that has been the aim and the purpose of these so-called global elites. Depopulation is generational. Bill Gates' father was interested in depopulation. The Rockefeller family and foundation interested in depopulation for decades. So now what has happened is that the technology has caught up with that diabolical intention of depopulation. And so now the technology has been employed globally to carry out that depopulation agenda. So I would refer in my conclusion to this question, answer to this question. Take a look at the Deagle research report. Deagle is Deagle. Deagle was the defense contractor. He's passed away now. But every year or so, he would do an assessment of every nation in the world. And according to his latest report, I think in 2019, and you can look this up on the internet, the population of the United States was to be reduced from 227 million down to 69 million. So that's the answer, the general overall answer to your question. We are in the midst of a global depopulation agenda. The global elites have announced for decades that they wish to reduce the world's population to 1 billion people, and inside the United States to less than 100 million. And so look at the Georgia Guidestones, just open your eyes and you see that agenda is in full effect.
Right. Well, I don't disagree at all. I wish I could disagree. I must say that as all of this was happening, I was somewhat naive. I just thought, well, I don't really want to take that medication. And then they started pushing it harder and harder. And I said, well, what's going on here? Depopulation might be far-fetched to some, but what is war, for example, where we just go and slaughter each other senselessly, and there's so many wars, one after the other. And for people who think that it's such a hard to understand concept, the way I look at it is this. Well, why would someone want to remove you from the planet? Well, because when they go to the beach, they don't want you taking up space at the beach. They don't want your head blocking the horizon. When they look off into the distance, they'd rather you not obstruct their view. Or when they go to a fancy restaurant, they don't want to see you sitting at the table across from them. Or if you go to the airport, they don't want to be online after you. So I think there are people who are that elitist in their mindset, that they have a disdain for the human race, and they're not too thrilled about the idea of the so-called ordinary man and woman. I want to ask you, Dr. Muhammad, about something that it's a touchy subject, you might say. Some people might think that this is going off the deep end to discuss this thing. I guess they might say that about the notion of depopulation, but let's go a little further off the deep end, so to speak. You were in that viral video I referenced at the beginning of the program. You were making reference to the idea of an injectable or an implantable operating system. And people might say, well, that's crazy. But you referenced the language directly from Moderna's webpage, which was eventually removed shortly after a few people were drawing attention to it. I guess most notably yourself. You were the first person I saw direct others to the specific language where they gleefully talked about the invention of the implantable or injectable operating system. Is that what has happened? Have people been connected to the Internet of Things through this mass inoculation event?
Absolutely. And again, I would refer your listeners to the remarkable career of Dr. Charles Lieber of Harvard University. He was the chairman of molecular biology. His claim to fame, and this was on the Harvard website, was that he was able to reduce transistors, electronic components, in other words, down to nano size. So in each injection, there are 3 trillion electronic components that get injected into the human body. 3 trillion. And those electronic components self-assemble on graphene frameworks in the brain cells, in the heart, in all organs of the body. And those transistors are literally the same electronic components that make up the cell phone that I'm talking to you on, but they're on the nanoscale. And those electronic transistors can both receive and transmit signals. They can transmit signals to body cells, causing behavioral changes at the cellular level, but also they can be remotely signaled from remote locations that might lead to behavioral control. So when you look at Mr. Biden, for example, who got the shot, and then he got 6 boosters, and Kamala Harris, the same thing, and you see the behavior change, you see the cognitive decline of a significant nature, and you see the behavioral changes that are not consistent with their personalities in the past. And so you see they have been victimized by electronic warfare on the nano scale. And so that's part of what's wrong with the shot. That is not a vaccine at all. It's electronic biochemical warfare. And, you mentioned, that depopulation was traditionally warfare, but you see the problem is bullets are expensive. So if you were going to calculate the cost of killing 6 billion people, you would find out that bullets are much too expensive for such a project.
Wow,
and
talk
so
about
the
cynicism, right?
The option for depopulation is injections.
Wow, what a cynical view of the human race. Whoa, that's pretty deplorable, I would say. Yes.
Well, keep in mind that it was God himself that populated the world and gave the command to human beings to be fruitful and multiply. So now who is the opponent of God and man? And so that is actually the source of the depopulation agenda. It is the evil one himself attacking humanity.
Yeah, I mean, considering the nature of the evil, again, I wish I could dispute what you're saying. So in terms of vaccine injury and this incredibly wide range of injury that we've observed from these injections, I think the Pfizer documents specifically listed 1,291 potential side effects, including COVID itself. What have you seen play out in your observations, your information gathering, in terms of the wide range of injury being inflicted? I mean, we're talking about myocarditis, pericarditis, but we're also talking about cancers. We're talking about autoimmune disorders, acute organ failure, people having problems with their eyes, with their ears. I mean, the range of injury, how do we explain such a wide range of injury, and what have you observed?
Well, as you referenced the viral video I did some years ago, and that was done in my kitchen, not in the coffee shop.
Oh, yeah, for some reason I could tell there was food around, but maybe it was.
Yeah. And that was just an impromptu. A friend came over for a visit, and we just started talking and decided to record it.
Yeah, that was remarkable.
But the point that was made at that time is that the actual bioweapon is the spike protein.
Right.
The spike protein is the bioweapon. Now, the components of the spike protein go all the way back to HIV. That's why people who get the vaccine, the so-called vaccine for COVID, test positive for HIV, because the spike protein is the antigen that gives you a positive HIV test. And that gives you a hint that the spike protein is actually responsible for the acquired immune deficiency that was associated with HIV, but it's also associated or responsible for, I should say, for the vaccine-induced acquired immune deficiency that we see today. Now, the reason I got kicked off of Instagram was because I republished the Salk Institute's research that showed that all of the pathophysiology associated with the COVID-19 shot was caused by the spike protein. And because I republished the research of the Salk Institute, I got kicked out of the metaverse.
That's phenomenal.
And I'm barely hanging on Telegram.
Right.
You see, because the truth be told, the spike protein is the weapon. It actually, within 48 to 72 hours of the injection, the spike protein can be found in every single tissue, every organ of the entire body. Now, what does the spike protein do? Well, it does what snake venom does, because the components of the spike protein are snake venom peptides produced by a company called Venom Tech, wouldn't you know? So snake venom basically causes all kinds of inflammation in neurological tissue, vascular tissue, in the blood itself, in the bone marrow, in the heart tissue. And so that's what you see. The side effects of the spike protein is total body inflammation, total body tissue destruction, total cellular collapse. And of course, as I used to say to some of my patients, a chain is no stronger than the weakest link. So in any given person, what's your weakest link? Is it your heart? Is it your lungs? Is it your brain? Is it your vascular system? Well, that's what breaks first. And that becomes the reported side effect, or the so-called long COVID symptoms that the experts talk about. So the spike protein is a deadly weapon that destroys all tissue everywhere throughout the body. And that's what it was designed to do. And that is exactly what it's doing. It's right on target. Bill Gates at Johns Hopkins in 2019 at the event called Event 201 predicted that the coronavirus pandemic would kill 65 million people before it was replaced by the next pandemic that had already been planned. And they're now calling that disease X.
Wow. Well, I have something I'd like to present to you and hear your thoughts about this concern that I've been thinking about quite a bit over these past several months, actually. But first of all, we've seen severe vaccine injury. I've been interviewed, I think, 5 vaccine-injured guests here on the Bassline radio program. We've had 5 different vaccine-injured guests, if I'm not mistaken, who have gone into detail about just an unbelievable range of symptoms they experienced immediately after or shortly after their injections. Most of them actually are nurses. One of them, a city bus driver. But, I mean, we've seen people whose health has just completely deteriorated. I mean, people who are suddenly diagnosed with not 1, but 5 or 6 different diseases, who have heart issues and brain issues, and just an unbelievable range of discomfort and negative side effects, which, you know, again, I don't actually like the term side effects. I just call it the effects of the drug or the product that was administered. But there are so many people who have taken these shots and they're incredulous that others were injured. They say, well, I took my shot and I took a booster and I'm fine. I feel fine. Or I took it and my wife took it and other people I know took it and they all feel fine. I have a concern that maybe people who feel fine at the moment are people who are going to die a lot sooner than they should have died. For example, you could be 30 or 40 or 50 something right now and you say, I feel fine, but now your body's programmed to die when you're, say, 72, when actually you were going to live until you were 92, for example. So is that a reasonable concern that I have, that we have shortened the life expectancy of the public?
Absolutely. We presented on the Your Immunity Project about a month ago a recent research study that showed exactly what you just said, that the life expectancy of Americans and in people in vaccinated countries all over the world, the life expectancy has been reduced, I believe, by 23 years, if memory serves me correct. I think the calculated reduction in lifespan of vaccinated people is 23 years. So now, if depending on where you are in your age group right now, hey, subtract 23 years from your expected lifespan. And so that's an established fact. Now, keep in mind, this is nothing new. You're talking about vaccine injuries. Well, let me ask the general question. If we go all the way back to the very first vaccine that was ever administered to any person in the world, you tell me what vaccine did not injure that person. The clear fact is every vaccine injures every person every time. Every vaccine injures every person every time. Now, sometimes the injuries are visible. They produce symptoms. However, in most cases, the injury is invisible. You don't notice the missing brain cells. You don't necessarily notice the missing kidney cells, because it's only a percentage of the total. But when you add up the total number of vaccines that are being prescribed by the government agencies and by the medical profession, well, that begins to add up to Alzheimer's at an early age. That begins to add up to renal failure at an early age, kidney failure, liver failure, heart failure, all kinds of autoimmune diseases, chronic fatigue syndrome. These are all the long-term, often unrecognized symptoms of the vaccination campaigns that were put in high gear back in the 1950s. And that's not even to mention the fact that the first polio vaccine up to the present polio vaccines contain SV40 that causes cancer. So why should people be surprised that if you're injecting cancer-causing substances into a person's body, that they develop breast cancer and prostate cancer, and now they're talking about something that we never heard of before called turbo cancer.
Right.
You see, so yes, there is no such thing as a safe vaccine. And the only safe vaccine is a vaccine that is not taken.
Okay, well, now you take me into a subject which is going to be a good focus point in my talk on Sunday that I announced at the beginning of the show, which is I'm trying to figure out how concerned citizens such as myself, I'm not a medical expert, I'm just a concerned citizen and a father of 2 young children, and I'm trying to figure out what can we do as responsible citizens, the people of goodwill, as I like to call us, who want to engage in this conversation, because they have stonewalled the conversation to an unbelievable extent. They've said as soon as you raise any question about any vaccine, they hit you with the labels. You're an anti-vaxxer, conspiracy theorist, right-winger now, et cetera, et cetera. Isn't that crazy? You're a right-winger because you don't want to be experimented on. I mean, how asinine. But what can we do to start to force this conversation onto the table? Because as they have it now, you have this sort of overlord kind of entity, the big pharma or big harma, as we like to call it, and they're just pumping the propaganda out. And then you have all these little underlings who are unpaid foot soldiers of the biosecurity state who are trying to shut down any question of any vaccine injury whatsoever. And one thing I've noticed about how they conduct themselves is they start out by saying, well, no medical product is perfect. Nothing is perfect. Some people are going to get injured. And then when you bring up exact vaccine injuries before them, things that are unquestionably associated with the administration of a vaccine, like what's going on with the case of, hopefully my listeners are familiar with Alexis Lorenz, a horrifying situation of a woman just bruised from head to toe, looks like a burn victim, an abuse victim. I mean, she looks almost not human. She's been disfigured by being forced to take a vaccine, or they said it was one vaccine actually, and it turned out to be a series of vaccines. It was 3 vaccines, including one 3-in-1 vaccine. So ultimately, this woman who was in acute state of distress, they gave her 5 vaccines, and what do you know? She turned purple, basically. And I wish I were exaggerating, but basically they go from saying it's rare to then when you present vaccine injury to them, then they say, oh, that couldn't be. That has nothing to do with the vaccine. And they start scrambling with total disregard for the victim and just launch into defense of a manufactured product, basically. So what can we do to break through in terms of this hypnosis, in terms of the people who have succeeded to a large extent in stonewalling this conversation, which, sorry to go on, but I've pointed out before, we would discuss any commercial product more than we're discussing what's being inserted into our bodies and our children's bodies, which is absolutely insane. We would discuss a new car, a new blender. We would discuss the results of a football game more than these chemicals that are being injected into people. How do we engage people in this conversation, Dr. Muhammad?
Well, I think the first point would be to understand that it's not a conversation. It's not a conversation. It's warfare. I mean, like we used to say in the Nation of Islam, prayer's all right at prayer meeting, but it ain't worth a doggone at bear meeting. So now at the rally in Harlem last week, I asked a question to the people, and I don't know if they took me seriously or they thought I was joking. If an axe murderer came down the street killing people left and right, what would you do? And of course, I predicted most people would run away and save their own lives and leave the victims to themselves. But some people would stand and fight, and they would take the axe murderer down. So now, if we understand the true situation, having situational awareness, to borrow a military term, people are at war. People have declared war against the civilian population of the United States. So now what the citizens should do, if they understand that they are citizens, is that they need to understand that they should have to fight for their rights. See, what's wrong with the vaccine paradigm in the first place? Well, in the first place, it violates the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution. The Fourth Amendment of the Constitution guarantees that American citizens shall be secure within their persons. Secure within your person means that no one has the right to pierce your skin without your consent. And that's why the foundation of medical practice has always been informed consent. But where is the informed consent where the vaccine paradigm is concerned? So it's a violation of your Fourth Amendment right. So an American citizen would stand up and fight for their Fourth Amendment right. Also, an American citizen would be aware of the congressional legislation that enabled vaccination in the first place, going back to the 1950s. Go look up the Senate bill that allowed vaccination campaigns to take place in the first place. And it was stated very clearly in that Senate legislation that no person shall be deprived of any rights or privileges to which they would be otherwise have available to them for their refusal to be vaccinated. It's your constitutional right. It's the law of the land. And so what has happened is outlaws have taken over the country. And they have thrown the Constitution behind their backs as though it doesn't exist. And as you use that term, hypnotize people through the mass media. Even the doctors, even the medical professionals have been hypnotized and miseducated and misguided. I was one of those. When I came out of medical school, I was all in favor of vaccination. I didn't know I had been miseducated. But when I educated myself, and that's the responsibility of each one of us, to be educated ourselves and not rely on experts. When I became educated myself, I realized, hey, I made a big mistake. in allowing myself to be vaccinated, my child to be vaccinated. And so as the Minister of Health in 1997, and this might be the best thing I ever did in my life, I issued a moratorium on vaccination for the Nation of Islam members. And to this day, those who have obeyed that moratorium, they have not vaccinated their children. And so we have an entire generation of unvaccinated pure bloods in the Nation of Islam. And so that's what citizens have to do. They have to fight for their right and take a stand and be willing to fight for your rights. Otherwise, they will not be recognized. They will be overruled by the criminal element that is taking control of the government.
You mentioned the Nation of Islam, Dr. Muhammad, and I have to take a moment to mention to the audience that I actually have the privilege of being a credited bass player on a Louis Farrakhan album. I actually was brought into the studio. Yeah, I'm an electric bass player by trade. I'm an experienced player. I've been on the road with a bunch of different bands, played on a bunch of recordings.
My son is a professional bass player, too.
Oh, that's incredible. I'd love to meet him one day. I'd love to jam with him. But actually, I must admit, my appearance is very limited. It was an album that was in production for a while, and it was waiting to be completed, and I got called in to play 16 bars of bass, just 16 bars.
Okay.
But I'm on the album, and
you're on there.
And a lot of people don't know Minister Farrakhan is a phenomenal violinist. He's a really impressive musician. He's not like just a hobbyist at all. He's incredible. But
and also now don't forget on the topic of vaccine. As far as I know, Minister Farrakhan is the only prominent religious or spiritual leader that categorically said don't take the vaccine and don't take any of their medications.
Yeah, I commend him.
And I don't know of anybody else that is taking that strong stand.
Yeah, I commend him for that because, and that's something I have to say I was surprised by was also, like you said, the indoctrination of the doctors and the medical community, but the religious people who got roped into being propagandists for the biosecurity state, which makes me ask, where in the Bible, where in the Quran, where in the Torah does it mention Pfizer? Where in any of the religious texts does it mention mRNA? Does it mention a prophecy where there was going to be a mass injection that we had to participate in? So for people of the faith, I didn't understand how this jives with the teachings.
It is mentioned. It is mentioned.
Please
the Bible says, fear not the one who can kill the body, but fear the one who can kill the body and the soul. So one of the aspects of the, especially the AstraZeneca version of the mRNA technology is that it robs a person of their religious belief. It destroys their faith. So it's in the Bible.
Interesting. I have to say, I know vaccine injury victims who they seem like their spirit is well intact. Their bodies are injured, but their spirits are intact, and they know that they were victims of this crime against humanity. And there are other people that I can only speculate as to what's actually going on with them, but there are people that I know who they've received their injections, and they seem to me like different people as far as I can tell. A sort of detachment.
Well, there's 2 points to be made to that. One is that, and if you check with Curtis Cost and others with the Children's Health Defense, they'll give you the references. But it's been shown that all of the vaccine lots, so-called vaccine lots, are not the same. And if you look at the vaccine injuries that have been reported, most of the vaccine injuries can be traced to a handful of lots that were distributed to certain people in certain areas and locations. And other lots are not associated with any side effects at all. Now, the second point overall is that people who only received one shot, who just received that initial shot, their rate of morbidity and mortality is just a little bit higher than the normal rate. It's only when you get the boosters, that's when you start to see the acceleration, in the vaccine enhanced disease. So one shot seems to be, you're kind of on the razor's edge a little bit, but not too bad. And it depends on what lot you actually received as to what was in that lot, because most of the toxic effects come from certain lots, but not all of the lots.
Yeah, I think that's actually a very significant point, and I raised this in my previous article called The Grand Unveiling, and I was talking about basically the illusion of pro-vaccine sentiment, which is we started out at an 81% uptake of the experimental shots, supposedly, and I don't take for granted that that's true, but they said 81% of the public ultimately received these injections, and that went from about 50% to it jumped up to 81% when they implemented the coercion, when they said you're going to lose your job now. So then all of a sudden it became more popular, but the number drops down significantly just in going from shot 1 to shot 2. We dropped from 81% and now it's down to 70%. And one of the biggest reasons why people never took their second shot was adverse reaction to the first one. I mean, there's some people who change their minds. If I didn't really want to take that shot and I feel differently about this than I did when I agreed to do this. But a lot of people just had bad reactions and weren't going to do it again. So now we're down to the uptake for the latest booster is extremely low. And we went from 81% supposedly being in favor of this, towering over the 19% who rejected it, to now it's 19% of us who stayed true, who we've maybe grown to 21, 22%, and it's down to less than 2% or so, maybe less than 3, less than 2% of people who are true believers who continue to, quote unquote, follow the science and stay, quote unquote, up to date with their boosters. For our listeners out there, I'm sure you would love to ask a question of the brilliant Dr. Alim Muhammad. If you'd like to join us, please call 888-874-4888, 888-874-4888. You should have that number memorized by now, have that on speed dial. But feel free to call.
Let me respond to your last point.
Absolutely, please.
You're correct that in Western countries like America, Europe, Australia, New Zealand, especially Israel, which has the highest vaccination rate in the world, the acceptance of the vaccine by the second shot or the third has steeply dropped off, as you said. But now the name Klaus Schwab comes to mind because he anticipated this problem as early as 2017. And he advised the vaccine makers that they should further develop what was called self-spreading vaccine technology, which goes back almost 20 years. And the other part of it is, and you can check with Dr. Peter Hotez at the CDC, who claims that people who are hesitant to take the vaccine should be considered as violent terrorists. And now this is a government official.
Yeah.
And he is calling for the intervention of the military and NATO, in fact, to deal with the anti-vaccine terrorists, as he terms them. So now if you look over your head, wherever you might be, you will see military planes spreading chemtrails through the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Now, I do a daily analysis of my area here near D.C., and on several occasions, what I've noticed is that the chemtrails contain the COVID-19 vaccine. The chemtrails contain the spike protein.
Wow.
The chemtrails contain radioactive elements. The chemtrails contain cancer-causing chemicals. So whether you decide to roll up your sleeve and take the shot or not, these people are serious about their depopulation agenda, and they are flying over your head, and there's no ceasefire for you, just like there's no ceasefire in Gaza, no ceasefire in Ukraine. There's no ceasefire for the civilian population in America. Look up sometimes and you'll see that they are spraying biological, chemical, radioactive weapons on you on a daily basis, and that also includes the COVID-19 vaccine and the spike protein.
Wow.
So, again, vigilant citizens have to take action. Who gives permission for those planes to fly over civilian population spraying chemicals? Where's your local sheriff? Where's the law enforcement? What does your governor have to say about that? What does your mayor and city council have to say about people spraying chemicals and biological weapons over your community, over your house?
Yeah, I didn't hear that mentioned at the last debate.
Stop being like sheep and take action.
Absolutely, Dr. Muhammad.
Otherwise, they'll kill you like sheep.
Absolutely. Well, we have a bunch of people who are looking forward to talking with you, Dr. Muhammad. Everyone, please, as we take calls one by one, I ask you to please be concise because the board is full right now. So thank you so much for calling, but please try to be concise so we can pass the ball to the next caller. First of all, we have Terry in Brooklyn. How are you, Terry?
Yes, good afternoon. First, let me quickly commend you on your platform. I am very disillusioned by a lot of alternative radio, but you stay on point and your guests are virulent in their expression. I love that they don't equivocate on what they say. They put it as fact, and you can do your research to concur or oppose, but they are straight up and true.
Thank you.
Okay, now my quick question, well, it's not questions, 2 points of contention. One of which he answered about different shots, okay, affecting different people. But we must remember that they also take the DNA when they call themselves testing in the first place. So they can acclimate whichever shot you come back to get along with your DNA. So it's almost like a personal murder, personal bullet, if you must. And the other one is the gentleman, Dr. Muhammad, said that he doesn't call it a vaccination, but you continue. I appreciate you immensely, but you continue reverting back to that when it's already been discovered and discerned and exposed that it's not vaccination. It's nowhere near vaccination. It is anything but. It's a jab. It's a shot. It's a bioweapon, whichever you want to call it. And I don't think we should give credence to it by calling it a vaccination because that muddies the water.
I agree. I mean, you can call them the Depop jab. You can call it the kill shot. You can call it the suicide shot. You can call it the killer vaccine. The clot shot. Yeah. These are all named. And by the way, if you hashtag those things, our social media platforms have been already programmed to recognize this as terminology to suppress your post, to not allow those hashtags to appear. So any number of people will actually put Depop jab, hashtag Depop jab. It won't complete the phrasing for you because they've been programmed to suppress this kind of language.
My next
if I could respond,
please.
Why don't you use the language that was used by the CEO of Johnson & Johnson since he manufactured these shots? What did he call it? He said this is gene therapy. So that's the proper name for it. Now, he explained that the reason why we called it a vaccine was because people will accept a vaccine. And if we had called it what it really is, which is gene therapy, then nobody would have accepted it.
Right. My problem with that term, my term though with the term gene therapy is then I wonder, well, there's nothing therapeutic about it. That's the only problem. Where's the therapy part?
Well, you have to define what it's not what you mean by therapy. It's what the manufacturer means by therapy.
Right.
So
good point.
I'm reminded of the comic movie called What About Bob? And the doctor in that movie, Dr. Leo, he had something called death therapy. Death therapy. So that's what we're dealing with. Death therapy. That's the therapy they have in mind for you.
Okay, that clarifies that. Well, Terry.
I know. The last one is covert. You keep using the word covert. There is no disease named covert. Covert is an anagram that means Certificate of Vaccination Identification. 2019. That was his intent. They changed it from corona because too many people were finding out that corona just meant a cold. That the coronavirus caused a cold. And if you go back in the history of it, they called it corona for maybe a month. And then over a weekend, it was COVID. It was COVID. It was never COVID from the beginning because 2019, we were supposed to all be under vaccine identification. That October meeting of 2019 that they had in New York, it should have been supposedly solidified that in order to use restaurants and fly and this, that, and the other was going to be utilized and appropriated through certificate of vaccination identification. There is no disease named COVID.
Okay, well, thank you, Terry.
Now, another point I would make is that in terms of the gene therapy, you have to recognize that one of the reasons for the name change from corona to COVID, and now, of course, the change from monkeypox to mpox, and all of the name changes and all of the variants that we have heard about going through the entire Greek alphabet, in fact, is, in fact, because this is a genetic weapon with ethnic characteristics. When Mr. Trump calls the virus the Chinese virus, he's not off target because the U.S. Pentagon sent a coronavirus as a weapon system into China in 2019, and the Chinese reverse engineered it and sent it back into the West, and it was specifically engineered to specifically target people with the Neanderthal gene. So that's why the death rate in Spain and Italy and France and England and America was like 10% mortality rate in that first wave, and in other places even higher than that, because these are populations that carried the Neanderthal gene, and that was specifically targeted by the Chinese.
Wow.
So Mr. Trump isn't wrong when he calls it the Chinese virus. But of course, if you do not have the Neanderthal gene, then yes, you're correct that this infection is just like a mild cold. If it even registers that high, you may not even know you have it. So in Africa, for example, you don't have any excess death rates from the coronavirus. You only have 5,000 deaths in China. But you have millions of deaths in Western Europe, Australia, New Zealand, Israel, and the United States and Canada.
Yeah. Wow. Actually, one of our former guests, my friend Tanya Kulane, Canadian nurse, is a vaccine injury victim to a terrible extent, and she had just gotten her gene work done or whatever, looked into her genetic background, and she was surprised to find she's like 40% Neanderthal or something amazing that astonished her. But that immediately flashed to mind, my friend Tanya Kulane, when you mentioned what you just said. That's very startling. We have Noel in Brooklyn on the line. Are you with us, Noel?
Hi, good afternoon. Please make sure to repeat, because I'll see you on Sunday.
Excellent.
Dr. Alim, I've heard you on Carl Nelson's show, and I look forward to meeting you one day. My question is, I have a brother out in California who doesn't believe anything that I say, and it's funny, he had a turbo cancer in his prostate, and also had a heart attack. And he's still, it's like my father used to say, he's a drowning man calling for more water. I mentioned to him about, yeah, I like that expression too.
Yeah, I remember that.
I mentioned to him about the undertakers in Europe and around the country, and he, of course, he said BS. Would you like to expound upon what those undertakers found?
Well, sure. I mean, and that's common information. One of the things that the snake venom peptides do, that's a part of the spike protein complex, it causes blood clots. Or reverse, it causes bleeding. And so those are some of the most common side effects when they do autopsies on people who passed away after having the shot. They find huge blood clots that block their circulation, and that's the cause of death. If you block your circulation in the brain, they call it a stroke. If that happens in the heart, that's a heart attack. If it happens in your kidneys, that's kidney failure. And so it happens all over the place. And unfortunately, your brother seems to be a victim of that. And it's not so uncommon, believe it or not, it's not so uncommon for victims to fall in love with their persecutors. Now, Dr. Robert Malone, who may have actually been part of the team that developed this messenger RNA technology, he's using the term of mass formation psychosis. Mass formation psychosis that are part of what's taking place. And I mentioned the electronics that are part of the injection, is you have a mass psychosis in the whole society. See, some of the things that I mentioned that citizens need to do to protect their lives, don't expect many people to do it. Don't expect many people to take on the vax murderers because they've already been drinking fluoridated water all their lives. They've already received how many vaccines in the past, and they all seem to be okay. You see, so you're not going to convince people. Like Mark Twain said, it's easier to deceive people than to convince people that they have been deceived. So don't waste your energy. Don't waste your time. It's precious. Do what Jesus said. Let the dead bury the dead.
Yeah, I'm not sure that any event in history epitomized Mark Twain's famous quote more than what has happened recently. We have Dan on the line. Dan, can you hear us? Are you with us?
Yes, I can. For those people that we all know who have taken the vaccine against our advice, I have a theory. I've not come across any literature that backs it up, but it's Dr. Muhammad mentioned of the injection. We all know there are also green zones around the country and around the world, favored zones by the financially elite, if not the morally elite. And so I believe that there are many people who received injections that are nothing more than saline injections that could not possibly harm them because they're in those particular areas that the financially or they're just good commerce areas for the rich. They don't want to upset those areas or to get bad press in those areas.
Well, if I can respond real quickly, you used the term green zone. Look up what the CDC's definition is of a green zone. This is a part of the lockdown scenario. A green zone, according to the CDC, is a highly vaccinated area. And there's other zones. And what they're talking about, and go look on their website. It's all on their website. I'm just summarizing as quickly as I can. Basically, this is the same concept as the 15-minute city, that you will not be able to leave your home and walk further than you can walk in 15 minutes, which is actually less than a mile. And so those would be the green zones, and those zones would be set up according to the CDC's documents. They would be set up according to your vaccine status. So all the vaccinated people would be in one zone. The partially vaccinated would be in another zone. Those who refuse the vaccine would be in another zone. And they would be restricted so that they would not be able to leave. Look at how they restricted travel in China at the early part of the pandemic over in China. They literally locked people into their apartments, or they put them into mobile units, and refused to feed them, refused, to allow them to have any services. So those are the CDC green zones. The 15-minute cities is just an enlarged version of the lockdowns.
Thank you so much for calling, Dan. We're pretty much out of time. I wish we could take another caller, but I don't want to cut into the time of the next program. Thank you so much, Dr. Alim Muhammad. You are a brilliant man. Very honored to have you as a guest today. Please keep track of his work. Please follow his Telegram channel. This man has some incredible information at his website. So like we said, this is sort of an overview of certain ideas, but look into his work specifically because he gets in depth about this range of subjects. Also, please remember this Sunday, 122 East 83rd Street, 1:30 p.m. Feel free to show up a little early, 1 or 1:15, and we'll be getting started more or less on time. And can't wait to meet some of you there. Please bring a friend. If you're not in New York, please send them my way. Say, hey, it's no cost. Just go and participate in a community event. And thank you so much for listening. Everyone have a great weekend, and thank you so much, Dr. Muhammad. Keep up the great work.
You're welcome, Brother Jeremiah.
Talk to you soon.
With open arms towards the sun, you feel the warmth of the rays, and then you know you're alive.